our quarterback, our QB1, the number one pick in the UCSS fantasy draft, just like the NFL draft in 1999. It is the one and only Tim Couch. What's up, Tim?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Good. We'll be doing a lot better Sunday at 4 o'clock with a victory. One of the things that we sort of found a flashpoint on today's show is whether or not most Browns fans believe that this is a game that is going to end with a victory. I said I think it's winnable. I also said that I'm picking the Ravens. They're a touchdown favorite for a reason. Where do you fall on this? If they won, where would you be on your surprise meter? And are you expecting a victory?
I think it's going to be a tough game, obviously, going to Baltimore. And Baltimore is probably the hottest team in the NFL right now, playing great on both sides of the football. To me, I really trust the Browns defense. I do not trust the Browns offense fully yet. So I don't know if they can go in there and keep up with Lamar Jackson right now. So for that reason, I would have to take Baltimore. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Browns surprise me. I hope Deshaun Watson comes out and plays his best game ever as a Brown. I hope they win the game. But right now, from what I've seen, it's just been too consistent on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense will play better than they did in the first matchup against Lamar. I think he hurt him in a lot of ways with his legs, getting outside of the pocket, extending plays. I think they're going to have to be better, and they will be better on that side of the ball. I just don't know if offensively we can keep up with and put enough points on the board on the road in a hostile environment like Baltimore to go in there and get a victory.
Tim, what did you think of how Deshaun Watson played last Sunday?
I thought it was kind of a mixed bag, really. We saw a few throws, a couple to Amari on a couple of deep balls where it looked pretty good. He threw some really nice balls. And then at other times, just some questionable decisions, a little bit inaccurate at times. But, I thought it's kind of what you expect after a layoff, right? I think it's just, a little bit of a mixed bag, kind of up and down. I'm really glad, most importantly, that he got that game under his belt before we go in and play these next two games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh. So I think that's very important. I think it would be a really tough ask to have Deshaun, miss those, few weeks that he missed and come back and say your first test is here against Baltimore on the road. I think so. I'm really glad he got that opportunity to play last week, and looks like he came out of that game relatively healthy and did some good things. So hopefully he can go out and build on that against a very tough Baltimore defense.
What's the key in this game for you?
I think the key for me would be to, obviously eliminate turnovers. I think in the first game, obviously, we had a rookie quarterback in there making his first start ever. So, he hurt the Browns defense quite a few times on turnovers and giving the Ravens a short field to operate on. So for me, it's, going out, sustaining drives, moving the football, taking care of the ball, most importantly, and don't put your defense in bad situations. I think if we can keep our defense rested and ready to go in there and defend Lamar and that great Ravens offense, I think that's going to be the key. So, it's really on Deshaun and that offense to take care of the ball, put up as many points as possible, make some explosive plays in the passing game. But I think first and foremost, you got to go in there with the mindset of we're not going to turn the football over offensively.
Tim, I was looking at, before you came on, I was looking at, there was a Monday night game where nobody had y'all winning the game. I think you went into Pittsburgh and y'all blew them out. And it was kind of one of those things where people around the country was like, what the heck? They never beat the Steelers. And they went in there and blew them out. What type of mindset, when you go out and you pull off those type of upsets, during that week of practice, could you tell something was different before you went out there and played? What was the mindset and how does that feel when you're going through that type of game? Because a lot of people don't have the Browns winning this game. They have not played well against the Ravens. And so I'm trying to figure out, does the quarterback see something special during those weeks of preparation?
Yeah, I think it's extra motivation when it's a big game like that, a primetime game like you were talking about we have with the Steelers on the road that night. So the whole league is watching. Everybody's you're the game on that night. So there's a lot of eyes on you. So there's that extra motivation. You're on the road going into a big environment. So you're extra focused, you're locked in during the week, knowing you got to have your preparation dialed in. Just all those factors. I think it's it's a division game, also. So, for the Browns going into a place like Baltimore, this is kind of that make or break game for them, right? People want to know, is this team for real? Are they really going to be contenders in the AFC North? So, you go on the road and win a game like this, it's going to open up a lot of eyes. And, Deshaun has had his haters throughout the season, people saying, he's not living up to the contract, this, that, and, whatever they want to say about him. And, this is an opportunity for him to go out on a big stage and say, I'm back, I'm feeling good, I'm healthy, I'm playing at the level I expected to be playing at, and go win a game like that, and the league's going to be talking about, the Browns are for real. Everyone knows they have a great defense. The question mark is, can they get it going offensively on a consistent basis? So going into this week, it's certainly a lot of motivation for those guys to go out and win a big divisional game on the road.
Tim, Myles Garrett was on a podcast with Kay Adams, formerly of NFL Network. I don't know if you saw any of this, but she asked him who's the better quarterback, Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson. And I was a little surprised he answered because, look, I mean, obviously he said Joe Burrow. I don't know how there's any real debate there, but the Ravens and Lamar could use that as bulletin board material. Are you surprised? I mean, I love that he answered it, but are you surprised that he did?
Yeah, I am surprised. I haven't heard that actually, but I think usually you get guys kind of given politically correct answer in those situations. They don't want to give bulletin board material, but for Myles to come out and say that, I think it just shows how much respect that he has for a guy like Joe Burrow, because I know Myles respects Lamar Jackson a ton as well. But I truly think when Joe Burrow is healthy, I think it's pretty obvious that he's a top 2 or 3, if not the top guy in the league. I really do. I think there's a debate for him being the best quarterback in the NFL when he's fully healthy. So I'm a big fan of his. I agree with Myles. But Lamar Jackson certainly presents a whole host of issues that Joe Burrow doesn't. When you play a guy like Lamar, you just have to be dialed in, reading your keys on defense. Everyone has to be playing assignment football, because you get out of space, you got a position, your eyes are in the wrong place with that Ravens offense, with all the misdirection in the backfield, and Lamar gets outside of your defense. Next thing you know, he's gashing you for 10, 15, 20-yard gains, and then he's throwing the ball so efficiently this year as well. He's completing a very high percentage of his passes, playing lights out. He's playing at an MVP level right now. So it's going to be a tough test for them defensively. But like I said earlier, I think our defense will play much better than they did in the first matchup with Baltimore.
I'm with you guys. I was shocked he answered that.
Yeah.
Shocked.
Yeah, we talk about bulletin board material. I mean, the Ravens could certainly use that.
Yeah, and he backed into it. I mean, it's not like he went there on his own.
No.
But Tim, you're right. Usually guys will give both the compliment and say they're both really good players.
Right.
He answered the question.
Right now, Myles Garrett is at like a level that most human beings can't reach. Like he's afraid of nothing. He thinks he's the greatest player in the NFL, and he might be. Like, he's just on a different level right now. He don't care. He'll say anything right now, I feel like, and I love it because he's got no worries. That's how it feels to me, Tim. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit it perfectly. He's playing at a level that, not many people have reached in this league. So, he thinks he's got he's reached a certain status where he can comment on these kind of things, and he's right. I think, Myles Garrett faces both of these guys every year in his division, so he's a great person to ask. Who's tougher to play against? Who's more respected than Myles right now? So I love that he answered the question. Like I said, it's it's pretty rare for in the middle of a season like this, especially with both of those opponents on your schedule, that you're going to pick one or the other in an interview and say one's better than the other. But I love it. I think Myles is entertaining. He's fun to watch. He's fun to listen to, and I'm damn glad he's on our team. That's for sure.
Boy, you aren't kidding.
Let me ask you about this. Might be a little three-dimensional chess. Now look, I like this Myles Garrett. I may be reading too much into this, but he's saying, all right, well, listen, I'm going to go ahead and take Joe Burrow. And why? Because Joe Burrow sits back there and delivers the ball from the pocket. Look at his arm strength. He throws the football, gets his targets involved.
He's baiting Lamar into interceptions, isn't he?
Hey, if you want to be like Joe Burrow, you should probably sit back there in that pocket and deliver,
Don't even attempt to run the ball on us, right?
Yeah.
Leave it to G to think of that.
I like that. That's a great
I like it, Myles.
Yeah.
I like it, too. I like it a whole lot. Could be fun. Yeah. I don't think he's going to take the bait.
Hopefully.
No.
Yeah,
Tim, there are certain relationships in sports that bring a game to an extra level. Sometimes it's a DB versus a wide receiver. Very rarely is it a coach against another coach, and even more rarely is it a head coach who's the brother of a former head coach in the NFL and a defensive coordinator. But there is real history between Jim Schwartz and Jim Harbaugh. You guys remember, and I don't know, Mikey, if you can pull that up on tag board, but
I do know what you're talking
they
about.
famously had, I thought they were going to throw hands at one another at the end of a game.
Yep.
It was, one of those deals where Harbaugh let Schwartz have it, and then Schwartz sort of chased him down.
Yeah, I love that. Oh.
Now he gets to go against his brother. Do things like that carry over? Do they make a difference in a game like this?
I would think they do. I'm sure that if you ask them, they would say, no, it's just another game, one of those type of answers. But I think in the back of your mind, there's that extra motivation. You hold a grudge against guys and certain things happen throughout your career. You always kind of put it in the back of your mind for extra motivation. And, so I'm sure that he's thinking about that this week a little bit and would love to go out and have a great performance out of his defense. And, they shut down that offense that no one can seem to figure out right now. Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense are on a tear right now. They're putting up a ton of points, and they're so versatile. They run the ball so well. Lamar's throwing the football really well. So I think Jim Schwartz is dying to go out there and have the right answers for that type of offense and to show the league that he's capable of slowing them down.
Do you remember what Jim Schwartz said to him there?
I just remember it was over the hard handshake.
Yeah.
But I don't remember.
And then Harbaugh started to walk off, and Schwartz said, "You were stealing our plays. You were looking at our plays beforehand."
You're right. That was over that.
So they've all been watching plays from the jump.
Harbaugh's our cheater.
Well, you know what? We done figured two things out. This is crazy.
Yeah.
One of the things that obviously is a big topic of conversation in this game, too, is the fact that they had such an easy time with the Browns when the game was here. In the divisional games, how much carryover is there within the season, one to the other, about what happened the last time they played?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit. I think, when you obviously play these teams 2 times a year, you get a lot of familiarity with their calls, their system, what they're trying to do. So when you go into these games, you always have something extra for those type of opponents that you're playing twice a year, where they're switching up calls at the line of scrimmage. You're changing up, your cadence, you're changing hand signals throughout the week because certainly they pick up on those type of things. So I think it's very important to be dialed into that. Everyone has to kind of be on the same page. Extra time in the meeting rooms, making sure everyone understands what's different this week than normal going into a game like this. So certainly there's a lot of that going on, and a lot of little chess game going on with the coaching staffs on both sides of the ball, just because of the familiarity and trying to switch things up and keep them guessing a little bit.
Let's talk about something, Tim, that you're very familiar with. That's shaky offensive line play. The Browns already had a shaky left tackle in Jedrick Wills. He played better lately. Right. He's got obviously out because he's on IR. Yeah. The right tackle, DeJuan Jones, who's played much better than we could have expected. We don't know his status yet. We'll see if he practices today, but so far he hasn't practiced this week. You're basically, you're going to go potentially, definitely 1, maybe 2 tackles that have barely, certainly haven't played for the Browns. This guy who may play left tackle has played a little for some other teams. But how concerned should we and they be about the situation with the tackles right now?
Yeah, I'd be very concerned, especially going in, on the road, this week into an environment where it's extremely loud. It's hard to communicate, in that stadium. So, and also Baltimore is, one of the best defenses in the league as well. So, I think you go into a game like that with those injuries that they have, and you have to, determine what you're going to do in pass protections in certain situations. Who are you going to help? Which side are you going to send the back to? You're going to chip? You're going to leave the tight end in? Are you sliding the line in that direction to give him a little bit of help? So, there's certainly all those factors have to come into play when you're dealing with these type of injuries and going on the road in that type of environment.
Tim, I think time has probably healed some of the hatred between these two cities. What was it like when you went to Baltimore for the first time, knowing that you were carrying the hopes and the hatred of an entire city on your back to beat the Ravens?
Yeah, it was intense. I remember we went there in '99, and obviously, the Browns left in '96. They were out of the league for a few years. So when we came back, as the new Browns, we were going on the first time we went on the road there and played. There was a lot of, hostile stuff being said from their fans, when we took the field for warm-ups and those kind of things, people behind your bench yelling things at you the entire game. But I love those. I think that's, makes for a great rivalry. And, it's fun to play in those games, even though, we didn't have a whole lot of success against them back then because obviously they had one of the best defenses in the history of the league with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and then the groups that they had, Tony Saragusa and all those guys that they had on that side of the ball back then, and made for a tough game. But the games are always fun to play in. It was just so intense, and the fans on both sides of the ball, or both sides, were very into it and loud, and it was fun to go on the road and play them. It was great to have them come to our stadium and let our fans give it back to them a little bit. So a lot of fun, a lot of great memories from playing in those games.
I always wondered, what the hell did their fans have to be angry?
Yeah, what were they angry about?
I mean, they stole our team. Why are they mad at us?
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah,
Usually the person that's mad is the thing that got their item swiped.
Yeah.
It's like you gonna steal my wife and punch me in the face.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, have a great weekend. We'll
All
see
right,
you next
appreciate it,
week.
guys.